Good day, folks. Welcome to another edition of On the Bench at Sport Fishing on the Fly. Today I'm going to tie for you my greed fly, I call it. It's a fly that I use for cutthroat, Searun cutthroat, and coho here on the west coast of BC where I live. It's almost been my most effective pattern the last couple of months with the fry being in the river, coming in the rivers and stuff. But it also works really well from the like the saltwater beaches by the creek mouths and stuff for coho and in the river as well. Make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For a hook, I'm using a Flow Fly Fishing number 10 streamer hook. It's a TH120. If you want, for the salt, I usually tie on these stainless hooks now. I've been using the Gamakatsu. Very good hooks, very strong obviously, because they're a gammy. For a bead, I'm using a 1/8 gold bead. Thread, I'm using Semperfli 12/0 classic waxed in red. For the tail, I'm using Semperfli, and it's Gowalla green, part of their new, it's blowing everywhere, part of their new Semperflash collection. And it's got some like red and gold and blue colors in this flash. It's very nice. One of their new blended flashes. For the body, I'm using small silver chenille and small black Palmer chenille. I'm just going to go ahead and start my thread here. I'm holding my tag here so I can wrap up against it, and that helps keep a nice even base without too many gaps. You always want to cover your hook well to keep your materials from sliding off it. These hooks are barbless, but I'm going to go to the point about where the barb would be if it had one. Snip that off. For the tail, I'm just taking a little chunk of the Gowalla green. And I'm just going to say at this point, actually this fly is based on a fly by Randy Pascal, and it's called Envy. It's part of the 7 Deadly Sins collection that we've got going on, and these two flies should be deadly sins because they're that effective, seriously. Especially when the fry are in the river, like I said. But my version has been out fishing his version lately, so that one was done also with a silver bead, not gold. Just going to tie that on. My tail is also a little bit shorter on this one than on the Envy. About there. About shank length. Next I'm going to take the Palmer chenille, and I'm just going to trim, like at the very start of it here, a little piece of it off so that I have a bit of the string exposed that I can use to tie in. Go right back to the tail. Just going to tie over top of that. Bring it back. And next I'm going to take the silver chenille and just pull a little bit of this off here so that I also have a piece of the string to use to tie in. And that just keeps a better profile to the fly, keeping it a bit slimmer, uniform. Most of my cutthroat and coho flies don't involve a lot of materials because I tie so many of them. I don't want to be spending hours at the vise tying flies when I want to be out fishing. So when I get to the bead here, I'm just going to make some extra wraps, and I've found by doing this, it helps the collar part of this fly just turn out nicer. That's good. It should be good. So I just built it up a little bit. I'm going to take the silver chenille and just wrap it up the hook in touching turns. when I get to the bead here, I'm going to make sure that I snug it right up against that bead. And tie it off, keeping my thread close to the bead too. Tie that off really well. And next, with the Palmer chenille, I'm just going to make sure it's all facing backwards here. And I'm going to Palmer it up the hook, leaving space in between the wraps so that you can see that silver body still a little bit. I think that's important when you're talking fry patterns, especially. But like I said, this fly works any time of the year. It works for coho as well. When I get to the front, I'm going to make 2 complete turns here, right at the bead. And then tie that off. Just make sure it's all pulled back there. Snip that off. And now I'm just going to tie a little red collar right here. And I've found if you don't build that up like underneath like I did with the thread, sometimes you'll find that there'll be a space in between the bead and the hook, like after you finish tying it, and then it can fall apart really easy, so you don't want that. You want to make sure that thread is right up against the bead like that. And then whip finish. I'm going to give it 2, as I usually do now. Snip that off. And for resin, I'm using the Simperfly No Tack resin, UV resin. I'm just going to take it and brush it on with a little brush. Hit it with my light. I'm using the light by Raid Zap. It's a great light. It's also rechargeable, which is nice. There you have it. That is greed for the greedy fish. Take care, everyone, and tight lines.